A plant disguises itself in fake dew, and almost everyone walks past it. Stay with me. The shine is bait, and the strangest part is not the trap, but how gently it closes. This is the sundew, and in a sunny bog its low rosette of leaves wears slender red arms, each tipped with a clear, trembling bead that catches the sun like glass. An insect drifts down to drink, and the instant it touches a single bead, the story is over, because that droplet is not water, it is glue. The sundew does not chase, bite, or snap. It simply waits, wearing jewelry made of paste. Those beads keep shining for days, refreshing themselves, because the plant is not decorating itself, it is fishing. And where it chooses to fish says a great deal about why it began hunting at all. You will find it thriving exactly where the soil offers almost nothing, in places most plants treat as a death sentence. That absence, it turns out, is the whole reason it learned to eat meat. The answer begins in the soil, or rather in what the soil lacks. Sundews grow in bogs, fens, and wet, sandy heaths, ground that is soaked, acidic, and stripped almost bare of nitrogen. For an ordinary plant, this is starvation, because roots pull nitrogen from the earth to build proteins, and here there is almost none to pull. So the sundew stopped relying on its roots for food and looked up, into the air, where the nitrogen walks by on 6 legs. You can find them on nearly every continent, from the peat bogs of Ireland to the flat-topped mountains of Venezuela, from Japanese wetlands to the sandy edges of Australian swamps, where more sundew species live than anywhere else on Earth. They favor open, sunny ground, because the glue works best when it glitters, and glitter needs light. Some are no wider than a coin, pressed flat against the moss. Others climb on wiry stems taller than your hand. But wherever it grows, the sundew is doing the same quiet arithmetic, trading a root's hunger for a hunter's patience. And what happens when the prey finally arrives is stranger than any snap trap, because this plant has no jaws at all. Up close, a sundew leaf is not really a leaf in the way you picture one. It is a paddle or a narrow strap, and its entire upper surface bristles with tiny stalks, each one standing upright like a hair with a bead of clear syrup balanced on its tip. Botanists call these stalks tentacles, and a single leaf can carry as many as 200 of them. The genus is Drosera, from a Greek word meaning dewy, and it holds roughly 194 known species, making it one of the largest groups of carnivorous plants alive. What it resembles is a jeweled pincushion. What it is not is a Venus flytrap, its more famous cousin, which slams shut in a fraction of a second. The sundew owns no hinge, no snapping jaw, no trigger hairs that count touches. It looks, if anything, defenseless, soft, glistening, almost decorative. That softness is the disguise. Each of those glittering beads is a gland, and each gland is doing 3 jobs at once, making the lure, making the trap, and preparing to make the meal. To understand how a plant with no moving parts catches a fly, you have to watch one droplet do its work. A sundew catches a fly with glue and slowly curls around it, still alive. Picture a gnat that lands to sip a droplet. Its feet stick at once, and the more it pulls, the more beads smear across its body. Within seconds, the struggle sends a signal down the leaf, and the nearest red tentacles start to bend, leaning in toward the trapped insect from every side. Over the next minutes to hours, more tentacles fold inward, dragging the gnat into the center of the leaf and pressing it flat against the surface. In some species, the entire leaf blade slowly rolls closed around the prey, sealing it inside a shallow, sticky pocket. The insect does not die from a bite. It drowns in glue while the plant holds it in place. A single leaf can process several insects at once, each held down by its own knot of tentacles. The whole capture is silent and almost tender, more like a slow embrace than a strike. Only then, with the meal pinned and motionless, does the real chemistry begin. The glue is the first trick. Each droplet is mostly water, but laced with long, tangled sugar chains that make it astonishingly sticky and elastic. Pull an insect, and the strand stretches rather than snaps, so it cannot break free. The movement is the second, harder trick, because a plant has no muscles and no nerves. When prey struggles, the leaf sends a slow electrical and chemical signal, much like the impulse in an animal nerve, though no one would call this a brain. In response, cells along one side of each tentacle grow or lose water pressure faster than the cells on the other side, and the stalk simply bends toward the meal. It is motion built from swelling, not from muscle. Most sundews take minutes to hours, but one species from Southeast Asia can whip a tentacle over in about 10 seconds, among the fastest movements in the entire plant kingdom. Once the prey is pressed down, those same glands switch jobs and pour out enzymes that dissolve the insect from the outside in, breaking its body into a broth the leaf drinks back up through its own surface. No stomach, no mouth. The leaf is the lure, the hand, and the gut, all at once. And it has been perfecting this trick for a very long time. A sundew once fascinated Charles Darwin more than almost anything else alive. He wrote that he cared more about this little bog plant than the origin of all the species in the world, and he meant it. For 16 years he teased its leaves with flies, raw meat, glass, and drops of ammonia, timing exactly how they curled. In 1875 he published an entire book, Insectivorous Plants, arguing that this dew-covered weed could sense a touch and digest an animal. That was the scandal. A plant with no nerves and no stomach was doing things everyone believed only animals could do. Darwin had found the blurred line between plant and animal, growing quietly in a swamp. And the sundew is far older than Darwin ever guessed. Fossil pollen and DNA both point to a lineage that has been trapping insects for tens of millions of years, since the age of the dinosaurs. It watched continents drift apart, watched whole forests rise and fall, and simply kept fishing. The trap you can find in a bog this afternoon is a design older than the grass around it. So why does almost no one know the sundew for what it is? Partly because it hides in plain sight. It is small, it is common, and it wears the most innocent disguise in nature, a sprinkle of morning dew. Most people who walk past one see a pretty, wet little plant and never learn that they are looking at a patient predator, one that solved the problem of starvation by turning sunlight into bait. It does not need rich soil. It does not need to move quickly. It only needs an insect to trust the shine. The next time you cross a marsh, look closer at the plants that seem to be sweating light. And somewhere in a bog right now, in light exactly like this, a droplet is glittering, waiting for something small to come and drink.